The sky was clear, stars were shining, the sea was dead calm on the starboard side, and I could see ice in the well deck.
Over a century has passed since that fateful night in April 1912, yet the story of the Titanic continues to haunt the imagination. Millions know the tale. A luxurious ship, deemed unsinkable, struck an iceberg and went down in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. But what if that narrative is incomplete? What if the iceberg, as terrifying as it seems, was merely a convenient scapegoat for a far darker series of events? History textbooks and documentaries have painted the Titanic's sinking as a tragic accident. The ship collided with nature's icy power, overwhelmed by the cold, and humanity learned a harsh lesson about hubris. Yet survivors' accounts whisper another story, one of subtle vibrations, eerie silences, and explosions from within the ship. Some suggest deliberate sabotage. Others hint at hidden dangers, fires burning beneath the deck, and scheming corporate giants eager to cover up mistakes. Consider this. An iceberg large enough to fatally damage the Titanic would have caused a tremendous, violent impact. The decks would shudder, the hull would creak loudly, and passengers would have felt a massive jolt. But survivor testimonies tell a different tale, one of sudden stillness, quiet panic, and a creeping, almost invisible threat. Could the iceberg have been a smokescreen? Could the real danger have been something humans orchestrated or overlooked, lurking quietly in the heart of the ship until it was too late? In this investigation, we will delve deep into the survivor accounts that chill the spine even today. We will examine strange explosions heard by those on board, whispered conspiracy theories, and the enduring mystery of the Olympic switch. From haunted memories to unanswered questions, from alleged sabotage to hidden fires, the Titanic's story might be far more sinister than history has ever told us. By the end of this journey, you may never look at the Titanic in the same way again. The iceberg may have been real, but the truth beneath the waves could be far stranger and far more terrifying. This is not just the story of a ship that sank. It's a tale of chaos, deception, and secrets buried beneath the cold Atlantic waters. Frank Prentice, assistant purser of the Titanic, was trained to remain composed during emergencies. He knew how to organize, how to maintain calm under pressure, but nothing could have prepared him for that April night. Decades later, in a 1979 BBC documentary, Prentice struggled to recount his experience. "There was no impact as such," he said, his voice shaking. "It was just like jamming your brakes on the car, and that was that." She stopped. For the world, the Titanic struck an iceberg with catastrophic force. For Prentice, it was eerily uneventful. No violent jolt. No screeching metal. No dramatic rupture. Just a sudden stop that filled the ship with a haunting stillness. Prentice had been in his cabin when it happened. The porthole was open, and he peered out at a clear night sky. Stars sparkled above the calm sea. There was nothing to suggest the horror that was about to unfold. As the minutes passed, subtle signs of disaster began to appear. Orders were issued to gather supplies, biscuits, provisions for the lifeboats. By the time Prentice returned to the deck, the Titanic was listing. Alarmingly, chaos began to erupt. It was then that he heard 4 distinct echoing booms from deep within the ship. Not the sound of ice scraping against steel, but explosions. Mechanical failures, steam pipe ruptures, or something more intentional? The freezing Atlantic waters claimed many that night. Prentice was hurled into the icy sea as the ship split in two, hitting the water with a terrific crack. A lifebelt and, as he put it, the grace of God saved him. Floating among bodies, watching the stern rise high before plunging beneath the waves, Prentice believed he would die. Yet somehow he survived. Even decades later, the memories haunted him. "You lie in bed at night, and the whole thing comes round again," he said. The world remembers the Titanic as a disaster caused by nature, but survivors like Prentice remember the quiet before the storm, the eerie stillness, and the explosions that seem to emanate from within. A chilling reminder that the iceberg may not have been the only culprit. Multiple survivors corroborated Prentice's account during the U.S. Senate inquiry. They recalled subtle vibrations, quiet panic, and strange internal noises. The official explanation attributed these sounds to ruptured steam pipes or pressurized boilers. Yet no one could confirm it definitively. The mystery of that night, combined with first-hand accounts of inexplicable events, sowed seeds of doubt that persist even today. The accounts of survivors like Prentice raise profound questions. How could a colossal iceberg cause explosions inside the ship without leaving visible evidence of a violent collision? What type of ice could rupture a ship from within rather than crushing it from without? Passengers reported no jarring impact, only an eerie suspension. Subtle vibrations ran through the decks. Steam pipes hissed. The ship seemed to pause mid-Atlantic, frozen in an unnatural stillness. Orders were given, but panic was slow to rise. Some crew members appeared uncertain, as though they sensed something invisible threatening the ship's integrity. Eyewitnesses recalled mysterious lights on the horizon, searchlights from distant vessels. Was help nearby, or was someone observing, perhaps even orchestrating the disaster? Speculation has abounded for decades. A fire burning within the hull, compromised steel, cheap rivets, or deliberate sabotage, any of these could have weakened the Titanic before it even met the iceberg. This uncertainty has fueled countless theories. If no major collision occurred, if the ship stopped as if frozen mid-journey, what actually caused its destruction? Were there deliberate internal explosions designed to ensure a catastrophic failure? Could unseen forces, human or otherwise, have been at play? Among the most infamous theories is the Olympic switch. Could it be that the Titanic that sank in 1912 wasn't actually the Titanic? The theory suggests that her sister ship, the RMS Olympic, was secretly swapped for the Titanic to facilitate insurance fraud. The Olympic, launched a year prior, suffered severe damage in a collision with the HMS Hawk in 1911. Repairs were extensive and costly, and insurance refused to pay. Facing potential financial disaster, some believe the White Star Line orchestrated a swap. The damaged Olympic would sail disguised as the Titanic, and her sinking would appear accidental, allowing the company to recover financially. Proponents cite several anomalies. Photographs show a differing number of portholes compared to official plans. Interior layouts appeared inconsistent. Crew behavior raised suspicions, and financier J.P. Morgan canceled his voyage at the last minute, later spotted relaxing in France. Critics dismissed the theory as implausible. Differences in engine layout, deck design, and serial numbers make a full-scale swap nearly impossible. Insurance payouts would not have justified the effort. Yet, the theory persists, feeding fascination with corporate greed, cover-ups, and historical mysteries. The internal explosion survivors reported remain among the most haunting details. Not mechanical failures alone, but deliberate or premeditated acts could explain the eerily calm collision or lack thereof. Crew members canceled voyages unexpectedly. Some brought religious texts, as if anticipating disaster. Observers from nearby ships may have watched, rather than intervened. These coincidences fuel speculation that someone ensured Titanic's failure from within, a chilling thought that leaves historians and conspiracy theorists debating even today. Historians such as Gareth Russell and Kent Leighton counter these claims. They argue a ship swap is logistically impossible. Two ships, while similar, had different designs, decks, engine rooms, and serial numbers. Thousands of workers and officers would have had to maintain silence. Insurance math doesn't support the alleged motive. Furthermore, when the wreck was discovered in 1985, it was confirmed as the Titanic. No credible evidence of sabotage or ship swapping emerged, yet the mystery persists, as gaps remain in eyewitness accounts, and human fascination with conspiracies refuses to fade. Even today, the Atlantic whispers secrets that history books ignore. Survivors' testimonies like Prentice's evoke doubt, suggesting the iceberg might not have been the full story. Fires, sabotage, insurance schemes, and unexplained internal explosions all hint at hidden forces. The Titanic sank, but the mystery endures. Was it truly nature or human design or a combination of both? Behind every tragedy, there may lie secrets we may never fully uncover. The Titanic story is not merely a disaster, it is a chilling testament to chaos, deception, and the darkness lurking beneath the surface of history. One of the lesser-known threats aboard the Titanic was a fire burning quietly in one of the coal bunkers. Coal fires were not uncommon on large ships of the era, but this one was significant. It had been smoldering for days before the Titanic even left Southampton. Historians and engineers have since suggested that the fire may have played a crucial role in weakening the ship's structure. Passengers and crew noticed unusual smoke in the lower decks, though it was largely dismissed as normal operation of the ship's boilers. Yet the fire could have compromised the steel hull. At temperatures that coal fires reach, steel becomes more brittle. Even minor impacts or pressure could have triggered cracks or ruptures. Some survivors reported an odd smell, a strange warmth in areas that should have been cold, and the sensation that something within the ship itself was unstable. Could this hidden fire have been the silent predator that made the Titanic vulnerable? Explosions heard by passengers, the sudden stop that Prentice described, and the eerily calm collision all take on a new dimension when combined with the possibility of a structural fire. It raises chilling questions. Was the iceberg merely the final straw for a ship already on the brink? Or was the fire a deliberate sabotage set to weaken the Titanic in secret before disaster struck? Engineers who have studied the wreckage suggest that prolonged exposure to fire could have stressed the rivets and steel plates, making them more likely to fail under stress. A ship moving at 22 knots with a compromised hull is a disaster waiting to happen. Some theories even propose that the fire could have made it easier to stage explosions or other internal failures, creating the impression of an accident when, in fact, the ship was already compromised from within. The idea of a hidden fire beneath the decks adds a chilling layer to the Titanic story. No one at the time realized the danger. Those above deck saw a smooth journey, a calm sea, and an iceberg looming in the distance. But below, the ship may have been silently preparing for collapse, a ticking time bomb in the belly of the unsinkable Titanic. Adding to the eerie atmosphere of that fateful voyage were whispers of curses and superstitions. Some passengers and crew believed that the Titanic carried artifacts or objects that brought misfortune. While these may seem like tales from a Victorian imagination, they reveal how fear and human psychology shaped the collective memory of the disaster. Crew members reported unsettling premonitions. Some passengers had vivid dreams of disaster, while others claimed to see strange omens before departure. A few brought religious texts aboard, perhaps hoping to guard against the unseen. Superstitions surrounding the ship itself were also prevalent. Certain artifacts, such as the ornate first-class decor, were rumored to bring bad luck, according to some accounts. While no scientific explanation exists for curses, the power of suggestion cannot be underestimated. Fear can magnify perception, turning subtle noises, vibrations, or fires into signs of impending doom. Survivors' memories of the night, already traumatic, may have been colored by these whispers, amplifying the sense of chaos and horror. Whether these curses were real or imagined, they contributed to a collective anxiety that permeated the ship. In combination with unexplained noises, explosions, and a smoldering fire, superstition turned a tragic event into a narrative that felt almost otherworldly. Some theorists even speculate that the curse was a way to explain the inexplicable, a narrative for a disaster that, on many levels, defied normal understanding. Among the many puzzling elements of the Titanic tragedy is the mysterious searchlight spotted by passengers in lifeboats. Survivors, including Prentice, recalled seeing a distant light on the horizon, one that they initially hoped was a rescue ship. Yet no help ever arrived. Was it a missed opportunity for rescue, or was the light something else entirely? Some theorists suggest it may have been another vessel, observing the Titanic without intervening. Could the ship have been deliberately left to its fate while witnesses watched? Others propose that the light was part of the White Star Line's alleged cover-up, monitoring the doomed ship from a safe distance to ensure no interference. The psychological effect of seeing a distant, unhelpful light cannot be understated. For survivors in lifeboats, it represented both hope and despair, a tangible presence, yet one that could not save them. The searchlight adds another layer of mystery, feeding the narrative that something sinister occurred that night, something beyond the natural disaster of an iceberg. Beyond the well-known testimonies of officers like Prentice, countless lesser-known passengers shared experiences that hint at unusual phenomena aboard the Titanic. These accounts describe subtle, unexplained vibrations, hushed warnings among the crew, and the eerie calm preceding the chaos. Many of these survivors noticed mechanical oddities, doors that jammed unexpectedly, water flooding compartments faster than anticipated, and structural creaks that were difficult to explain. One passenger recalled hearing muffled explosions beneath the ship before any ice contact. Others described an uncanny stillness on deck, as though the ship were suspended in time. By comparing these testimonies, patterns emerge: explosions, quiet panic, and sudden, inexplicable stops. Even decades later, these forgotten voices offer credibility to the notion that the Titanic's sinking was more than a simple collision with ice. They serve as a reminder that history is often shaped by the most vocal few, while countless others hold pieces of the puzzle that remain buried, like bodies in the cold Atlantic. The Titanic's story, with its unanswered questions and eerie accounts, has left a lasting impact on popular culture, maritime law, and human psychology. Conspiracy theories, documentaries, and books have ensured the legend lives on, feeding fascination with cover-ups and unsolved mysteries. The legacy is not just historical, it's emotional and psychological. Survivors carried trauma, and society projected fears onto the disaster. Over a century later, the fascination with Titanic mysteries endures, showing humanity's persistent desire to find hidden truths, assign motives, and imagine unseen forces at work. The combination of natural disaster, human error, and unexplained phenomena continues to captivate. Even the most well-documented tragedy leaves room for speculation, and the Titanic remains a vessel of mystery, a testament to human ambition, frailty, and the enduring allure of unanswered questions. As the Titanic began its slow descent into the Atlantic, the lifeboats became a scene of unimaginable chaos. For passengers, the orderly evacuation expected from a state-of-the-art vessel quickly devolved into panic and confusion. Frank Prentice and others recalled the struggle to load lifeboats, often with no clear direction or protocol. Despite the unsinkable reputation, there was not enough lifeboat capacity for all on board. Some lifeboats were launched half-empty, while desperate passengers watched from the decks, shouting and pleading. The sudden stop of the ship, combined with the unexplained internal explosions, created an almost surreal atmosphere. People weren't responding to an iceberg. They were reacting to confusion, fear, and inexplicable sounds from within the ship. Some crew members tried to maintain order, but their efforts were often thwarted by the crowd's panic. Women and children were prioritized, yet even this protocol was inconsistently applied. Survivors described lifeboats being lowered into water unevenly, ropes snapping, and some being swept back into the freezing Atlantic. Prentice and other officers worked, tirelessly retrieving supplies and attempting to calm the decks. But the chaos was relentless. Witnessing loved ones struggle, seeing the ship's stern rise before vanishing beneath the waves, and hearing the muffled explosions still echoing from within, the night became a nightmare that no training could prepare anyone for. The lifeboat. Evacuation highlighted another mystery. How could a ship as large and advanced as Titanic descend into disorder so quickly? Was it merely human panic? Or did the ship's unexplained internal failures, fires, vibrations, and sudden explosions contribute to the confusion and fear? Historians and engineers have long debated whether the Titanic's sinking was exacerbated by inherent mechanical flaws. The steel used in construction, rivets, and hull design have all been scrutinized. Some experts argue that the ship's structure was already vulnerable, a fact potentially worsened by hidden fires and internal stress. The internal explosions reported by survivors suggest a mechanical failure beyond what an iceberg impact alone could produce. Steam pipe ruptures, compromised boilers, and the fire burning in the coal bunker may have weakened the vessel's integrity. Prentice himself described the eerie stillness and sudden stop, a scenario difficult to reconcile with a massive iceberg collision. Investigations after the sinking revealed weaknesses in the ship's design. Bulkheads did not extend high enough to prevent progressive flooding. Rivets in critical areas may have been substandard. Combined with the unseen fire, these small failures could have contributed to the ship's catastrophic breakup. The Titanic's unsinkable label may have been a miscalculation. While the iceberg is often blamed, mechanical and structural weaknesses, amplified by internal fires and potential sabotage, paint a more complex picture. The disaster becomes not just a story of nature's wrath, but of human oversight, hubris, and possibly deliberate interference. The White Star Line was controlled by the International Mercantile Marine Company, a powerful conglomerate with global financial interests. J.P. Morgan, the company's financier, was famously scheduled to sail on the Titanic but canceled at the last minute. Some conspiracy theorists suggest that this was more than a coincidence. The theory posits that the company may have had a motive to ensure a failing vessel or manipulate events for financial gain. The sudden cancellation, combined with the alleged Olympic switch, internal fires, and unexplained mechanical issues, create a narrative of corporate intrigue layered atop maritime disaster. While historians debate the plausibility of deliberate interference, the connection between powerful financiers and the Titanic's fate adds an element of shadowy intrigue. It asks a chilling question: how far would corporate interests go to protect their wealth, even at the expense of human lives? One of the most haunting aspects of the Titanic tragedy was the breaking apart of the vessel. Survivors watched the stern rise high into the air before plunging into the Atlantic, a sight that remains etched in maritime memory. The ship's breakup suggests that structural integrity was compromised well before the iceberg impact. Survivors reported hearing explosions and groaning metal, hints that the ship was failing from within. Engineers examining the wreckage later confirmed that the hull split along a seam, consistent with internal stresses possibly exacerbated by fire and mechanical failure. The breaking of the ship added to the chaos among lifeboats and survivors. People were thrown into freezing waters, lifeboats capsized, and the ocean became a scene of desperate survival. The combination of internal failure and external damage underscores the complexity of the Titanic disaster, an event shaped by multiple factors rather than a single cause. The stern rising above the water left a haunting image for those in lifeboats. Witnesses describe it as a towering, almost surreal sight, a ship defying logic as it tipped and twisted. Some survivors recalled hearing mechanical groans and muffled explosions as the stern separated. Others described water flooding compartments rapidly, faster than ice damage alone could explain. These accounts reinforce the idea that the Titanic's fate was influenced by hidden factors: fire, structural weakness, or deliberate sabotage beyond the iceberg narrative. The eyewitness testimonies of the stern's breakup remain among the most chilling reminders of human vulnerability at sea. They offer both a visual horror and a puzzle for investigators, hinting that the disaster was more complex than a simple collision. Even decades after the Titanic sank, the Olympic switch theory continues to fascinate conspiracy theorists. The theory suggests that the Titanic that sank was not the brand new ship everyone believed it to be, but her nearly identical sister ship, RMS Olympic, disguised and deliberately sent to her doom. Supporters of the theory point to discrepancies in photographs and ship schematics. Differences in portholes, interior layouts, and deck arrangements seem to contradict official plans. Crew testimonies hinted at last-minute confusion, as if something was being hidden from public eyes. And then there's the timing. The Olympic had suffered severe damage in a collision with HMS Hawke in 1911, leaving the ship financially compromised and perhaps structurally vulnerable. The alleged motive is insurance fraud. By sinking a compromised ship under the Titanic's name, the White Star Line could collect compensation while protecting their pristine, newly built vessel. Critics argue the logistics are implausible. Two massive ships swapped without a single whistleblower? But for some, the combination of historical accidents, unexplained events, and corporate greed makes the theory irresistibly compelling. Even today, the Olympic switch narrative persists in books, documentaries, and online discussions. While evidence against it is strong, the theory survives because it fills the gaps left by unanswered questions. Why were explosions heard from inside the ship? Why did J.P. Morgan cancel at the last minute? Why did lifeboats launch so chaotically? The Olympic switch theory may never be proven, but it remains a cornerstone of Titanic's enduring mystery. The internal explosions reported by survivors are among the most unsettling aspects of the Titanic disaster. Multiple accounts describe dull, echoing booms coming from deep within the ship, sounds that could not be explained by ice alone. Steam pipe ruptures, coal bunker fires, and mechanical failures have all been proposed, but no definitive explanation exists. Rumors circulated immediately after the sinking. Some whispered of sabotage, of explosives planted to ensure the ship's destruction. Others suggested internal fires reached critical points, causing secondary blasts that accelerated the breakup. Crew members, too, reported strange noises and vibrations prior to ice contact, adding credibility to the possibility that the disaster was partially caused by hidden internal threats. Whether real or imagined, the explosions shaped the survivor experience. They transformed what could have been a straightforward evacuation into a chaotic nightmare. The mystery remains. Were these explosions purely mechanical, or were they evidence of a human hand manipulating events from within the ship? Amid all the theories, disasters, and mechanical failures, one factor remains undeniable. Human behavior shaped the night. Panic spread quickly among passengers who had no idea what was happening below deck. Crew members, though trained, struggled to maintain order. Lifeboats were launched half full, ropes snapped, and people were hurled into icy waters. Survivors like Frank Prentice described moments of pure terror, watching the stern rise high above the ocean, hearing muffled explosions, and floating among the dead. Decisions were made in seconds: who to save, who to prioritize, and those choices left lasting emotional scars. The human element also ties into the larger conspiracy theories. Miscommunication, confusion, and panic provided the perfect cover for potential sabotage or hidden threats. Even if no deliberate act occurred, the sheer chaos amplified the disaster, ensuring that the Titanic's sinking would remain a subject of endless speculation. For over a century, historians, engineers, and enthusiasts have sought to uncover the truth behind the Titanic's demise. Wreck explorations, forensic studies, and archival research have shed light on structural weaknesses, iceberg impacts, and coal fires. Yet gaps remain. Unexplained explosions, the Olympic switch theory, and survivor testimonies hint at deeper mysteries that may never be fully solved. Every new expedition to the wreck adds detail, but also raises new questions. Why did some sections of the hull fail first? Could the ship have survived longer if internal fires were addressed sooner? Did corporate greed or human negligence play a hidden role? The search for truth is ongoing, and part of the Titanic's allure lies precisely in these unanswered questions. Even when facts are confirmed, the shadows of uncertainty leave space for imagination, theory, and speculation. The Titanic disaster was not just a maritime tragedy, it was a lesson in human hubris, engineering limits, and the unpredictable power of nature. Ships became safer, regulations stricter, and lifeboat capacities increased. Maritime law changed, ensuring that such negligence would not go unchecked. Yet the human fascination with mystery and conspiracy endures. The Titanic teaches that even the most well-documented events may hide secrets. Survivor testimonies, unexplained events, and unanswered questions remind us that history is not merely what is written. It is also what is remembered, feared, and whispered about. The iceberg may have triggered the disaster, but internal fires, mechanical weaknesses, chaos, and possibly human intervention ensured it became one of the most iconic tragedies in history. A century later, the Titanic continues to haunt imaginations. Survivor accounts like Frank Prentice's unexplained explosions, the Olympic switch theory, coal fires, and lifeboat chaos all suggest that the disaster was far more complex than a simple iceberg collision. The iceberg may have been real, but the chaos beneath the surface, the fires, internal failures, and human panic defined the experience. The Titanic was a marvel of human engineering, yet it was also vulnerable, fragile, and perhaps even cursed. In the end, the Titanic teaches us that disaster is rarely simple. Behind every tragedy lies a combination of nature, human error, and mystery. The unsinkable ship sank, but its story, its secrets, conspiracies, and unanswered questions remains afloat in our imagination, calling us to look deeper, question more, and never forget the lessons of chaos beneath the ice. While passengers often capture the spotlight in Titanic stories, the crew played a critical role in the unfolding disaster. Officers and sailors were trained for emergencies, yet the events of that night tested them beyond their limits. Frank Prentice and others described confusion and miscommunication that made an already impossible situation far worse. The crew struggled with conflicting orders, inadequate preparation, and the sheer scale of the catastrophe. Lifeboats were improperly loaded, some half-empty, while others were dangerously overcrowded. Certain crew members tried to maintain order, yet panic spread faster than any structured response could manage. Some conspiracy theorists argue that crew behavior may not have been entirely innocent. Reports of unexplained explosions, sudden stops, and structural anomalies